I'm Joe Duffner with DirectLink Technologies. We're happy to be here today and a sponsor of Big Data. DirectLink Technologies is a co-location facility and technology center. We house data. We house businesses' IT infrastructure. We provide that power, cooling, connectivity, and security to keep their IT running at all times. One of the things in particular that our customers like about DirectLink is our connectivity. We offer cloud on-ramping, hybrid cloud solutions. So not only do we are able to house their IT in our facility, but we can connect them to anywhere in the world. If you'd like more information on DirectLink, grab some literature at the back table or see me after the presentation. And I also have some card holders if you would like. I'm also pleased to introduce Steve Mancini, who's going to give our next tech talk. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Louder. Can everybody so they can hear me, I'm turned on. Yeah, I'm Steve Mancini. I'm the Chief Technical Officer. I'm also the Director of Strategic Operations, and I spearhead all of the training for NCFTA. And I'm basically going to tell you today that most of what you're hearing is stuff that actually makes my ears bleed, and I'll explain that here in a second. By the way, I was trying to figure out all of the colorful words for what we've been calling over the last few years cybersecurity. Just a quick fun fact, because it really does play into my cynicism of technology in general. If there was ever somebody that could profile and say, that will be the next Unabomber, you'd think it was going to be me. But so far, the moral switch is on good, so you're fine. I'm a good, but technology drives me crazy. And I started with I think this is actually comical. I still remember using 5 1/4 floppy drives on my Commodore 64 with a 9-pin dot matrix. And I didn't have the monitor, but I did use a regular home TV, and you put the little RCA switch in the back, TV, computer. See, I'm in the right audience. You guys are, oh yeah, I get it. I do that, so I teach a couple of classes at college. They're like, what? As they touch their smartphone. I didn't get their attention in 8 seconds. They're checked out. I've missed it for the next hour. So that is where my cynicism comes from, because I have been in technology for a lot of years. And what I'm going to talk about here is how, in my opinion, nothing's changed. We are just taking the same words from 20, 30 years, and we keep rebranding them because sell, baby, sell. Don't take that as a criticism to the vendors in the room. You're not part of the problem. You're part of the solution. Eyes rolling. Kidding. Anyways, here's my disclaimer, because everything I'm going to tell you is all obviously for training and educational use only. Real quick though, just on NCFTA, this is not a sales pitch because we're a nonprofit, we have nothing to sell. But we are located here in Pittsburgh. We also have offices in New York and LA. What we do is we bring law enforcement, different industry partners from all of the sectors together. We co-locate them in our facility, and we work on all kinds of crime with a cyber nexus. So we see everything from the techie nerd stuff all the way up to the cyber-enabled crime, which a lot of folks, including a lot of businesses, don't think about it until they've wired $20 million to an account in Hong Kong and can't figure out why the books don't balance at the end of the year. But I'll get into that in a second too. So first of all, let's define cybersecurity. So I decided to go out there and just kind of look up different definitions of cybersecurity. And I guarantee you, if I went around the room, you would all have some subtle difference to what you thought cybersecurity was. Just like if I said, what's the dark web? And people would go, oh, it's the dark web. Like, what do you mean, it's the dark web? And I would probably pull my hair out, but then I would say, oh, wait a minute, why don't I just become a vendor and just go get government contracts telling them the dark web is dangerous, buy my product for dark web. Cybersecurity, very important. How many people have heard this before? We need more cybersecurity experts. How many, if I say you need more cybersecurity, what would you hire? What would you hire? Exactly.
Sit on a board of the health system, and that's all we talk about.
Cybersecurity, my God, it's important.
And I'm just like, it's just IT.
If I didn't have a soul, I would be retired right now, because I could just take advantage of sea levels all day long. But I have a soul. So I believe that I'm not going to take advantage of this. But I tell you what, if you look at these definitions, now I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Click. And I brought up some definitions for IT security. And if you go back and you say, well, cybersecurity, it's measures taken to protect the computer system, preventative methods to protect information, set of techniques to protect the integrity of networks. Okay. Sure sounds like IT security to me, but who the hell is going to spend $20 million on a contract for IT security when they can have cyber security? There it is. So are they the same thing? What are we even talking about? You're in a big data analytics, a conference, and you're talking about data. I'm not a philosopher, but you tell me data, depends on what you talk. Data means different things. Information means different things. Security means different things depending on what group you're talking to. But for some reason, because we've done such a fantastic job of making, let's boil it down to the ones and zeros, it is technology. We've done such a fantastic job of making it look better, it looks prettier, we've got it smaller, I can do it all on my device, I can do all this stuff, but at the same day, it's zeros and ones being crunched on a CPU, in RAM, permanently stored on a hard drive or solid state. Nothing's changed. But you know what? That's not going to sell. Because you know what? One thing we have done very differently, I'll go back to the data, is we keep pushing. Let's make the data accessible. Let's mine for data. Let's get more data. Let's get the users out there. Let's grab that data. And under the guise of we're going to make the user experience more enjoyable. How many folks agreed to let Equifax have every piece of information about your financial history? Anybody remember that data? How about, any government people in here, victim of OPM? I got 3 letters from OPM. 3. Everything about me, my family, gone. I think it's a great idea to have all that data out there in storage, don't you? See the cynicism, how it comes through. Mary gets it. Where does he get it from? Why is he so angry? You get a couple of letters. And what's funny is I used to work for the Department of Homeland Security for a couple of years. And I left there in late 2013. And I believe it was around 2017 that I got another letter from DHS saying your data may have been compromised. I'm like, I haven't worked for you people in 4 years. What the hell are you still doing with my data? Oh, mamma mia, you can't make this stuff up. So at the end of the day, to me, you say cybersecurity, I'm going back in time, I'm going, what you really mean is there's a bunch of information. Who remembers the word InfoSec? Thank you. This guy here, I like him already. You just moved up at the top of the list and the most liked in the audience. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So information security, at the end of the day, what are you really trying to protect? Your information, whatever it is. But you're making your information accessible with what? With technology. No, that hasn't really changed that much. It's just faster, get more throughput, prettier graphics. Now I can do things more wirelessly. I can capture more stuff because I can process it faster, because I can shrink down the processing devices, the sensors. It just allows me to do the same things I could do 20 years ago. I could just do more of it. And I'm capturing all of this stuff, and it's all out there, and it's making big data. Okay, got it. It's all out there, but we're not even thinking about protecting it. I forgot the lady 2 presentations ago, Marine Reserve. She was the only one I even heard the word security come out of when she talked about her data was encrypted. She's the only one out all day. We're talking about analytics, and making it accessible. We want people to see it. You know what? Not all data is equal, and not all data should be shared. Unfortunately, the data that's not shared, shouldn't be shared, it seems to be getting shared with the wrong people. And the stuff that we don't care if we share doesn't seem to be getting shared with the right people. So I think IT security is literally what it comes down to. You have an asset, it's ones and zeros, and you're trying to protect your ones and zeros, some of your ones and zeros, and some of your ones and zeros you want to share. Got it. So how do you do that? And by the way, that's kind of what I'm saying. What are you securing? At the end of the day, you can call it anything you want. It's ones and zeros on hard drives. Is it on someone else's servers? The cloud. We renamed, remember we used to call it distributed computing in the 70s? Dumb terminals, mainframes, processing happened on mainframe. Let's go away with that and pull all the power onto the PC. We don't want to buy PCs. Let's go to other people's servers and we'll just call it the cloud. Hasn't changed, folks. But again, what are you protecting at the end of the day? Ones and zeros, no matter what server they sit on. Remember these things? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, CIA. By the way, whoever originally thought, we'll call it CIA principles, like, that wasn't interesting, because the irony of working with a CIA who is the exact opposite of everything we stand for. Did I say that out loud? Thank you, Mary. So confidentiality of data, again, some of it you want to share, some of it you don't want to share. The stuff you don't want to share, like OPM data or Equifax, seems to be getting shared whether you like it or not. And then you talk about the gentleman before who was talking about murder data, is like we're trying to find ways to share that or health data. Like, then there's roadblocks in place. So why is it we can't do what we want to do, but we end up doing what we don't want to do? Integrity of the data. You keep hearing this theme over and over and over again. The data, you can run all the algorithms you want. But if the input is data, garbage in, garbage out, and I learned that in the 90s. Don't let the boyish face fool you. I'm in my 40s, so I still remember this stuff. Availability. Hey, let's move it to the cloud. It's always available. Well, I got a news flash. If it's available for you, it's available for everybody. And you don't necessarily want everybody to have that data. So when you keep putting all these apps and all these wonderful smartphone apps, hey, great, I can do my banking on my phone. Guess what? So can Ivan in Ukraine. He can do my banking on his phone in the Ukraine, but I don't want him to do my banking on his phone in the Ukraine. But it happens all the time. And again, we're not stopping and going, boy, my God, we're coming up with all these applications and we're cranking them out. We want everyone to have access. We want data. Like, stop. I'm probably one of the few people in the room that's a fan of GDPR. Because you know what? Whenever you sign up for an app, how many people have downloaded an app and it said, let's say it's Angry Birds. It says, I need access to your camera, your phone calls, your contacts. Like, really? So I can shoot a bird across the screen? Really? Okay. And you know what you do? Because you got to have that bird flying across the screen. If you get the Star Wars themed Angry Bird, man, you're done. You're going to be there for hours. And you wonder why we're getting dumber, right? I can't figure it out either. But you've agreed to that. So you didn't say, I want Equifax and TransUnion and Experian to have my data, but you did agree to it. You just don't remember clicking the little thing that says, I accept all the terms and conditions. Click, got it, and they got all my data. Set up your Facebook account, read the terms of use, but don't worry, they're going to work with you on locking that down. But you think they're doing that out of the kindness of their heart? There's nobody grabbing all of this data for good reasons. So you're grabbing data for different reasons, used for different purposes. And some of it you're doing because you do it to yourself, because you put your life story out there so everyone can read it. And you've shared it. Everybody got a LinkedIn profile. I got one. I read some people's LinkedIn profile. If I was a bad guy and I was going to social engineer, I would have no problem successfully targeting folks because people do it to themselves. At the same time, you got all these things out there that you don't even know you're giving up the data. By the way, for the people that think plugging your car in is a great idea, not only is it letting your insurance, I can't wait till you get your first ticket in the mail because your car reported you for speeding. Tell me it's still a good functionality then. Me, that ship has sailed. Now you talk about how are they getting all this data? All the data's out there. It's in the cloud. The cloud's more secure, right? Right? I'm being sarcastic. It's sarcasm. If you're wondering, nothing's more secure. It's just other people's servers. And to the end of the day, when you move to the cloud, I'm not criticizing moving to the cloud. I still do some things on the cloud for some of the stuff we do. There is obviously good reason for that, but you have to weigh the risks of, okay, I'm going to transfer this to someone else's servers, and I'm going to play the worst case scenario. I'm going to put it on their servers, and it's going to get popped. What's the result of that? If I can live with that, fine. If I can't, then I better not do that. But at the end of the day, all of that data is accessed by applications. Now, my master's in software engineering. And in software engineering, way back in the 90s, back in my day, which is what I feel like saying sometimes to these people out there, comes down to a basic thing when you write any kind of software, whether it's the year 2018 or whether it's the year 1990. Software does what? It takes an input, it processes, and it generates an output. No matter what it is. If it's a sensor, if it's a phone, if it's an app on your phone, if it's an app on your computer, if you still use one of those things, your tablet, whatever. You have some app, you do something to it, it does something in the background, it generates an output. For years and years and years, we've been talking about best coding practices. How you should screen the input before you actually put the input into the functions so that no garbage goes into your function, causing things like, remember, buffer overloads and all that crazy stuff? Now I'm going to nerd check you. Who remembers something called frac? Oh, fail. All right, fail. It used to be an actual magazine. You can go out and read it online. There was an article written, and you need to go out and write this down. I don't care if there's one thing you take out of this. Go read an article called Smashing the Stack for Fun and Profit. It was written almost 30 years ago about how to do buffer overloads. And he laid it out how you could write these vulnerabilities based on input, how you could throw input into something and overwrite the pointers in the stack and all the processing, and it would put you in another spot of memory, and ta-da, you could execute your code. That paper was written 30 years ago, and you know how they still do a lot of the exploits? Like that. They still do them like that. And so you talk about OWASP. Everybody's heard of OWASP? OWASP has been talking about best coding practices since at least 2001, but how many people are out there still writing apps? It's a race to get the app out. Is the app, and I don't want to say secure, but is the app stable or is it buggy? If it's not buggy and it's safe, it's good enough. Oh, we threw some SSL, TLS on there for the got it, good enough, get it out there. But you still have applications being, vulnerabilities every day. Who uses Adobe? do not see Adobe patches pretty much on a regular. And how do you think that works? Because bad guys take Adobe, they throw a bunch of garbage at it, embed it in different files, they open it up in Adobe, and they see if Adobe can crash, and if it crashes, they see what the memory error was, and then they try and write a payload for it. It ain't rocket surgery, or rocket science for that matter. But they've been doing it for so long, and it's still gonna happen. And we're talking about putting everything out there going, darn, we can trust the people holding our data. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but what you can't trust is the front door to the data. Because for years and years and years, we've been told, don't do this, don't do that, check this, check that, and we're still not doing it. Again, you can call it anything you want. You can call it snowflakes and sunshine, but at the end of the day, basic coding practices of validating your input before you even throw it into the function is something you should do. That's why, in theory, SQL injection attacks on websites shouldn't work anymore, should they? Because you should be taking, when a person enters a username, you should be looking, boom, they're putting a semicolon in there, they're putting a dash, they're putting a comma, a zero equals zero, whatever. Are they doing those? If you aren't, but I can still launch successful SQL injection attacks in the year 2018. But everybody knows the problem. So why is that still able to happen? But don't worry, the data is fantastic on the back end. I'm going to go back a little further. Everybody remember FSMA? Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your honesty. So Federal Information Systems Secure Audit Manual came out. That was the one from 1999. So this is the government going, boy, our computer systems, we're really starting to, actually they call them information systems, or they had a different term for them. But they said, we're using these things, we're going to make sure they're secure. If you go out and you read FSMA, if you go down and read that manual, change the words a little bit. It's the same stuff in the year 2018 we're telling you to do. And people are still not doing it. And then people look at me and they go, well, why don't you want to put your stuff in the cloud? Why don't you want? Because I know the people guarding that data forget the fact that they're making money off me, whether I should have it. Forget the whole, is it right for someone to have my blah, blah, blah. Forget it. Just let's say I did trust them. Let's say I was okay with them having my data. I can tell you right now, based on the gazillions of breaches, and let's just talk about a few of them, breaches for companies, we're not talking mom and pop Joe's Pizza Shop. I can go all the way back and talk about, the Google Aurora attack in 2010 if we want to go there, where the Chinese launched it. We can go after Sony breach. Which one, you ask? Great question. Which one? These aren't small companies. These are RSA. What is RSA in the business of? Security? Didn't they have a major breach? And I was in DHS at the time. You don't even want to know how that one went. And the only thing that made that, they got lucky that it wasn't worse than it was. So I can get into this all day. She's giving me the wrap it up some already. You got it, ma'am. I'm not shy about doing that, by the way. I love to do that. So you look at Equifax. Equifax has all the financial data, i.e. yours. In case you don't know it, you were impacted. Now I'm going to make fun of a public official. If you know me more than 8 seconds, you know I love to make fun of public officials. But I'm going to make even more fun of a public official. So I met with one of the state reps here. Because shortly after that happened, I said, you know what? I'm waiting for my letter from Equifax telling me that my data may have been exposed. I mean, am I supposed to just assume? Or am I supposed to put it into that other site that they stood up that you're supposed to be able to check on? The one that was susceptible to vulnerabilities and would give you a different answer depending on when you put your data in there? Well, that's a great idea. Again, that's not Joe's Pizza Shop. That's $1 billion corporation, and they can't get it right. And they've got all this data. So back to the state rep. So I go to her and I say, you know what? What's Pennsylvania's reporting laws? Hey, somebody has my data. I don't recall giving them access to my data, but whatever, they got it now. So they have all my financial data. They got breached. What can I do about it? She says, well, I haven't really been following it because I don't use Equifax. You just want to pull your hair out. Like, I know you're shocked to hear that your elected officials don't know much. I'm sorry to ruin your impression. But it's like, people don't even understand what's out there and who's doing this. And in the case of Equifax, it was a known breach. It was a Struts vulnerability. ScriptKitty, short level above ScriptKitty could have launched that attack, but we're going to say it was nation state. I get it. A lot of what we call chatter on Chinese forums in Chinese talking about the exploit. We knew they were doing stuff. So okay, fine. Maybe they did it. Maybe they didn't do it. But they definitely probably did OPM. So now, if I'm the China, let's just say, why don't you trust people with your data? Well, I've got two good examples where I am personally affected. And here's the fun fact, folks. You're affected for the rest of your lives through the Equifax breach. I'm affected the rest of my life through the Equifax and the OPM breach. But here's the other fun fact. OPM breach also affects members of my family who I had to put down on all my security paperwork. Everywhere I lived, my neighbors' names, everything. And now it's in the hands of a nation state who's not exactly pro-US last I checked. And then let's talk about Target. How many people are still going into retailers in the year 2018 and still swiping your credit card? Still happens in retailers. Everybody know what EMV compliance was? EMV means you're supposed to use your chip. When was that supposed to be mandated to retailers? 2015, October 2015, retailers were supposed to go to EMV compliance, meaning I have to stick my chip in to ensure point-to-point encryption, blah, 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 blah. You can still go in there in the year 2018 and swipe your card. Now, you want to talk big data? When major corporations are not doing the fundamentals of security, and I'm not even going to get into the healthcare sector, man, with all due respect. I just think too much of you already from your presentation. But they're a mess. They're a mess for the same reason a lot of these companies, they're going, I've got to have the shiny object. And they're plugging it in. And they're not stopping and saying, okay, if we put this shiny object in, this is risk 101. If I put the shiny object in and it can touch my data, what could happen? And if that does happen, what's the implications of that? Maybe I should hold on the shiny object till I get it, squared away. Old Navy term. So what? So I can tell you I work with a lot of companies that spend buku bucks on what I'm going to call cyber threat intel people. I am going to save you and your company $100,000 a year. You ready? Here's who's targeting you. Anybody that can monetize whatever you have. So it could be nation state, it could be criminals, it could be hackers. If I can make money off of what you have, you are a target. So congratulations, you don't need to spend $100,000 on some threat intel company to write fancy reports saying, hey, on the dark web, bad guys continue to do bad things. Got it, whatever the dark web is. Now, that's kind of my epiphany though. So when I'm in the motherland of Italy, I have to do that every time I do that, I'm walking on these roads that are 2,000 years old, and I'm going, first of all, we've obviously known how to build roads for a long time. Second of all, these 2,000-year-old roads are in better shape than the roads in Western Pennsylvania, as that picture is a penned out picture. So why is it that we've been able to build roads for thousands of years, but yet we keep screwing it up? And it's very something to think about, because they still use, believe it or not, they still use some of the roads built by the Romans. Think about that. And we can't build you're going to pave the parkway. I don't know, they're going to pay, we're going to be back in, we'll be locked out in 2 or 3 years, we'll be back here repaving the same spot. So it's the same with IT. Go back in time. Go back in time. You don't have to do anything crazy. Those simple things. What applications am I installing? Input validation, segmented network, firewalls configured, blocking, all that stuff we've been doing for 20 years. Go back and make sure you're doing it. And you can do all kinds of free assessments, but I think as an organization, you have to be honest and you have to look at your organization and say, okay, let's play the what if game. Let's say the user does click the link. What's their permissions? What can really happen? Think medical, okay, if a nurse or a doctor clicks on a link, opens up, and it's ransomware, are they going to is this thing going to run wild on the network, or is the network segmented? Do we have, sensors in place? These are things we've been doing for 20 years, but people aren't doing them. And then they go, why did this happen? Why, Lord, why? Now, I'm going to go quick, because I think she gave me the wrap up 5 minutes ago, which means I think I got 1 minute. 1 minute. All right. So that's focusing on the technical spot. But here's the flip side. There's a whole nother rash of things targeting you and your business that have nothing to do with the technology. And in a nutshell, it's called good old-fashioned crime that simply is enabled through the use of technology. So instead of picking up the phone and pretending like a Microsoft help desk, I'll just send you an email. Instead of saying, sending you a fax saying, hey, you should buy this 2-cent stock, I'll send you an email. Just some simple examples. And the point, though, is from a loss perspective, all of these crimes reported to IC3, Internet Crime Complaint Center, out of all 8 of those, only one of them is really technology, and that's the corporate data breach. All the other ones have nothing to do with technology, other than the fact that they were to communicate with the victim via, say, email, most likely email. And number 1 is my all-time favorite, business email compromise. And here you go. Bad guy sends email, pretends to be the boss, and says, hey, John or Jane, you're the finance person. I need you to wire $10 million to this bank account instead of this bank account. And instead of going, boy, there's something suspicious about that, let me ask someone. He said, well, the email told me to, and they wire the money. And you would think, Jesus, nobody would wire crazy amounts of money because an email told me to. Oh, let me tell you 2 things I learned in the Air Force. 1, never underestimate the laziness of people. 2, never underestimate the stupidity of people. Those are the reported numbers, meaning how much is not reported. Since 2013, it's been over $5 billion with a B wired mostly to accounts in Hong Kong and China because the email told me to. So instead of somebody getting off their ass and going, hey, do you think, is this real? Did we really change our payment processor for this? And someone going, I don't know. How about, I'm going to blow your mind here. How about you pick up the phone and call them? But that's crazy talk now. So some of these, romance fraud, I've never met you, baby, I love you. That's my favorite, my second favorite after BC. 5 billion on BC reported. We've seen wire transfers as high as $50 million in one shot because the email told me to. So let's talk about big data, okay, right? You hear where I'm going with this? So you're under constant attack. It's regular, simple nerd attacks going after your technology. It's, Western Africans, Chinese, fake call centers going after you through non-technical attacks. It's just a constant plethora of stuff going after you. Why? Because either you got money that you can transfer or you've got intellectual property that they can monetize. And I'm not going to go through the rest of these, but these are just reported. But like I said, when you look at that list, and you're not even counting the long-term impacts of all of these intellectual property thefts. One final fun thought. I'm not going to go through this. This is the industry reported numbers. Look at those numbers, and most of that is not due to the actual technology, but technology enabled the crimes to be committed a lot easier. But I'll leave you with one fun thought. By the way, that's a real-world leader. Thank you, Mary. She's the only one who knows who it is. I'll give you a hint. They're north of America. Did you see the article, was it Bloomberg today, about the chip the Chinese put in the motherboards on the servers to call back to the motherland? I mean, let me ask you, let's go back in time. How many times have we been talking about supply chain integrity? Is that a new concept? It's not. But where are we buying our motherboards and servers and all of our telco equipment from? You can say, I won't buy Huawei, I only buy Cisco. Where do you think those Cisco switches and routers are made? And I'm not telling you don't buy Cisco. What my point is, there's nothing new to see here, folks. We've been saying it forever. We just refuse, for whatever reason, to do what we should have been doing for 20 years. And then what's compounding the problem is we're adding more capability, more widgets, and more fun facts, and let's plug the house and let's plug the car in. You know what, I'm at work, I need a text to come tell me, don't forget to pick eggs up. Do I need that? Or do I want that? And what's the long-term impact? And you're kind of already seeing it. Mary and I, we teach at Carlo. I'm shut up. One thing, this is my final thought. I know this is going to blow your mind. A lot of you have kids in the room. But look at attention spans. Look at the lack of ability to think, the lack of ability to problem solve. Like, what do you think's causing that? I'll give you a hint. Google, what should I eat tonight? Google, how do I get to? Google, what's the number for? So I'm not anti-technology. I'm all about using technology, correctly. But I just think as you're going back and you're developing new widgets, just think about all of the ways they're being targeted. Know that nothing's really changed. And finally, every time you plug in, you have just opened another way, yes, for the consumer to make life a little funner, easier, lazier, whatever, but you've also done that for the bad guy. Good luck. You're all screwed. I'm going to the mountains. I don't have